S.A.V.E. has existed more or less for a decade. Um, Now, where some of the confusion will come in for others is South Bend adopted what's called the Group Violence Intervention Strategy, and that's where GVI comes into play. That's for the entire city. The city of South Bend adopted the GVI strategy, and the strategy says that when you employ three prongs: moral voice, which is community leaders, law enforcement, which would be prosecutors, police department, different things. And then the third arm is social services, to be able to offer services to individuals. So you have three different entities that provide those different things. Goodwill Industries actually holds the contract for the social service arm of the GVI strategy. So when you hear GVI, that's in reference to the entire strategy, whereas Goodwill S.A.V.E. is the social service arm of the strategy. It's its own thing provided by Goodwill, but Goodwill is the social service provider for the GVI strategy.
That clarifies so much.
Okay. And I think a lot of people would need to hear that because they think the names are like synonymous with each other. And hey, GVI, you guys are GVI. No, we're a part of the strategy. We are, but we're our own thing. Just like law enforcement is their own thing, just like our moral voice and community leaders are their own thing. They're each their own entity, but the three prongs work together to make the strategy viable.
No, I think that if I had that question, a lot of people will have that question, and I think this is a good opportunity for us to clarify that. So that's awesome.
Okay, good.
So yeah, so that said, I just want to focus in on it's the end of the year, and there was a lot of gun violence with young children this year. So like names that I think of specifically are the kids under 18. So we have 11-year-old Tion Horston, 16-year-old Luis Hernandez, that 1-year-old, and then Josiah Small. So that's a lot for one small city for 1 year. So I first want to get your reaction to that awful, like the amount of tragedy we've had this year.
You never become immune to it. It's devastating. In each of those situations, my team, I have to take time to make sure we employ a lot of self-care because these situations are hard hitting. And oftentimes we have to respond out to these scenes and deal with these families in the moment, to deal with these crowds in the moment, and then continue to do that follow-up work and be a support to them. So it can be tough. That's just the long and short of it. It's hard. Okay, and that's why it's important to have such a dedicated team that you can rely on. A lot of long nights, a lot of long days. And so we remember what we're here for, to provide these services, to be here for these individuals in their time of need. And then when we step away, it's my job as a director to make sure that I give my team the support and downtime that they need to be able to stay girded up, built up, and be able to go out here and continue to work with the community.
Well, right. I mean, the question that would follow is, what do we do to stop this, right? And I think that's where programs like yours come in. So tell me about these prevention efforts. And also, well, sorry, I don't want to pile it on, but like, is anything changing moving forward into the new year, maybe?
So one part about it is, for one, having the conversation, putting a spotlight on these things so that others realize what is available. And then once you get different stakeholders at the table, it's beginning to have the conversation so that you can reach some form of understanding. See, before, others didn't really realize that so much of the violence is happening amongst teens and them being so young. Being in this position for going on 16 months now, I know coming in, having the conversations based on my social work background, I'm like, listen, these are youth who are engaging in most of these acts. I was met with some level of resistance, but over time, that resistance has lessened because others see, and the numbers dictate, this is in fact a lot of youth who are being involved in these different situations. So getting that understanding first. And then once you have that, well, what do? It's one thing to be reactive. We like to take a preventive approach whenever we can. So we are in the schools. Well, why are you in the schools? We're in the schools to engage those kids who might be right on the cusp of getting themselves into some serious issues. They have a term they use called pre-adjudication. That's before a kid would become involved with the court system. If we can catch them then and work with them, that's great. Now, we're willing to work with them after they become system involved. If needed, we'll be there for them no matter what juncture we reach them at. But if we can get in early, we run groups within the schools that work on some social skills training, emotional training, and anger control training, so that kids are able to be viable members of the community, or at least learn to be able to communicate and how to formulate a critical thought, to think something through before they react to it. But why is that important? Because the fights that you see occurring in these schools, when it comes down to it, they're usually over something simply that was said that was deemed to be disrespectful. But our kids have taken it up a notch because they're not receiving the proper guidance, and they have the access to these weapons at such a young age. And you're seeing people get shot over situations where you hear parents and people talk about generations long gone where, hey, we used to fight and then we would get up and shake hands and be done with it. People don't fight and shake hands and be done with it anymore. That's not the reality anymore. So rather than having people from a certain generation continue to harp on those things, you have to understand where we are. We have to deal in reality. And the reality is, because of a lot of outside forces, okay, and a lack of genuine support, our kids are quick to pick up a gun or quick to deal in a way where it's such finality, and it doesn't have to be that way.
So, all of that, the critical thinking, the emotional learning, how does it actually take place? Are these mentorship programs, classes, counseling? What form does this happen? What form does this take in our schools and community?
Well, I don't have a huge team, but we have multiple schools throughout South Bend in which we go in and we run weekly groups. And these groups run for, I believe they meet one time a week for 17 weeks for each school. And then also I have my team out in multiple schools who go in for lunch, okay, to provide a presence. They do interactive games and things with the youth and engage them there and do the relationship building aspect of it. Because how do you get a kid to listen to you? Well, you build a relationship with them. You show up, you be consistent, a consistent present in their lives, and then they'll open up to you. Okay, it has to be genuine. If it's not genuine, they won't go for it. They won't open up to you. But if they feel like they can say something to you and let you know where they really stand with something, and they don't feel as if they'll be undermined or belittled, then they'll open up to you. So yeah, we run groups in the schools consistently, and I have my team out there in different schools throughout South Bend every day.
That's awesome. So, how big is your team, and are you hoping to grow it?
Team consists now of 9 individuals, 8 of whom are usually out in the field in the community. One is more of an office-based position. I would love to double the size of this team because the need is so great. Coming in for the first year, I understand I may have been an unknown quantity. Knowing I have a 20+ year extensive social work background and bringing that to this area, we've been able to kind of make some traction, make some headway, make a good name for ourselves, show ourselves to be consistent in our delivery, in our approach. And now after year 1, we sit down and say, listen, what can we do better? How can we extend that reach? How can we get into more homes? Right now we also have a group that we run on Thursday evenings. We call it the S.A.V.E. Mentality Group. It's a young men's group. Just to get young men to come in and have positive role models who look like them sitting around a table. And as far as the construct of the discussion, really it's a time to have an open dialogue, to let these kids speak and see where their head is at with things. You'd be quite surprised when you see where these kids stand as it pertains to relationships and different things. Wow, they really are living a distorted version of a grown-up relationship when they haven't taken the time to develop those skills cognitively to even be in a relationship, to even have a true knowledge of self. So before they even get to that point, they have a girlfriend or boyfriend, and maybe they have a kid now. And I understand how easily it could happen because at one time I was a teenage father. Okay, but I look at the support that I had, and even though it was a struggle, I was still able to raise my children. They graduate from high school to be able to become a homeowner, to go to college, to earn a degree. But the generation before me, these were things that were still impressed upon me. So there were still things that were important that I strived for. And what do the youth strive for now? What example is consistently being set for them now? Who can they lean on? Who can they really go to that's going to spill positively or pour positively into them to lift them up and encourage them instead of wagging a finger and telling them everything that they do wrong?
That's such a powerful story. What, like, you say that you could have been that kid that went, and chose violence, but you didn't. Like, what were the forces that prevented it for you in your own life? And now you're trying to do this for others.
Something I don't speak about very often publicly. Those who know me know is I have one sibling, okay, and we grew up in the same household, same mother, a single parent, and so my sibling ended up getting into trouble and is in prison, you know, and and you look at me and you look at him and you look at what's the difference, right? Well, we reached the point where I was shipped to a different school outside of our neighborhood. I was exposed to the fine arts. I joined the orchestra at a young age, science bowl, quiz bowl, participated in all the extracurriculars. Whereas my brother was still in our neighborhood going to school. And guess what? He was being teased more. We weren't a rich family, and not wanting to kind of be a laughing stock. You want to do better. You want to have more. Well, guess what? Wanting to have more, someone introduced him to the drug game and put a gun in his hand and told him, this is how you defend yourself. So they put a bow in my hand and teach me how to read sheet music and play Bach or Brahms or Beethoven or Tchaikovsky, walking bass lines to go and see the symphony, these different things. Whereas he was exposed to drug addicts and the brutality of the streets, and that can affect anyone. You have a lot of kids out here who are raising their siblings when they didn't ask to raise their siblings. Those aren't their children. And they have this misguided loyalty where they have to be the one to make a way for their family, and that's not their job. So I often speak to parents and implore them, listen, we have to do better. This is not about a blame game, okay? But we have to admit we're in a pretty tough position right now. So maybe there's a little bit of blame to go around, but only so that we can look at it, do a critical analysis, and we can formulate a plan and we can come out and do better. Okay, we have to be focused on doing better. So yeah, there might be some ugly conversations that have to be had, but if they're being had for the greater good, then I'm all about that.
Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, it's tough, but it's important for people to know your why. Why do we get up? Why do we do these things? Yes, it's a job. Yes, I have love for my city. I'm passionate, born and raised here in South Bend, and I have a team who was born and raised here in South Bend. So we really do care. We look at some of the expectations from the city, from Goodwill Industries, things we have to get accomplished. We know, but for us, it's a dream job because guess what? Even if no one was paying me, I would be out here trying to help our community, trying to decrease gun violence, trying to enrich the lives of our youth. These are the things that I do on an everyday basis. Why? Because I understand that having that one person at a critical juncture in your life to be able to spread that positivity, to be able to offer you that direction, saying, hey man, go this way a little bit instead of going that way, that can be all the difference in your life. I know so many people who, because of one choice that was made in their life, it changed the entire trajectory of their life. So to have someone there during those times to guide you, to help you make the right choice, it can make all of the difference.
Mm-hmm. And that was my other question. So you said you have a team of about 9. Are they volunteers or employees? Are they paid?
These are employees, yes.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I wanted to ask about, because I could talk about this for hours, but I'm taking up a lot of your time. So the flyer I was referring to that kind of gave me the idea to pitch this as a story said, will help with child support, job placement, driver's license. So I want to talk a little bit about that, what services are available to the community if they reach out to S.A.V.E.?
Well, when you hear about things like child support, driver's licenses, and things of that nature, that goes back to the GBI strategy. Now, when you look at those prongs, one of those prongs is law enforcement. Like I mentioned, you have the prosecutor's office, you have law, you have the police department, or the prosecutor's office. They're part of the strategy, and hey, they have a lot of flex. And when someone's willing to come in and work with us and get the help that they need, well, then we can go right to the prosecutor's office and communicate with them and say, listen, these are the barriers this individual is facing to get their license, the things they need to take care of. And they'll look at it on their end. And I've had instances where different tickets and different things, they've cleared all of that up and told the person to maybe pay a small reinstatement fee and let's get you your license. The same with child support. So many people, they don't want to deal with the court system, so they allow things to happen and time just to go by. Meanwhile, they're accruing more and more and getting into arrearages where they can't work or have a viable, living, be able to earn a living, okay, because they never take the time to get with someone and have those conversations. We have a relationship with child support. If a person is trying to work, trying to support their children and support themselves and do what they can, those folks are more than willing to work with you and do modifications and do things. You just have to honor the deal. You can't run away from it. So I'm trying to teach my community to listen, you have to face your problems head on. But that can be a daunting task. That can be scary sometimes. And so my team, we stand in the gap. We have a saying amongst the S.A.V.E. team, and the saying is, we say the quiet part out loud. Others are driven by, different motivations, be it politics, business, whatever. We are driven by a deep love and care for this community, wanting to see guns put down, wanting to see community be built up better and stronger, and seeing families be able to reconnect, reunite, and see people be able to thrive. We really are driven by that on a day-to-day basis.
I love that. Well, I don't have any more questions, but is there anything else you want to say? Are there any changes coming? Anything I'm missing?
Yeah, hopefully the team continues to grow. I often implore people, if you want to be involved, you reach out to us via our Facebook page, send a message. We do need volunteers, okay? Goodwill is a nonprofit, so maybe we need to do better with fundraising. But if you believe in this cause and the work that's being done, reach out and see a way that you can contribute. And also mental health, as we seek to remove the stigma from mental health, understand everybody's dealing with it. Everybody's dealing with it. Whether it's diagnosed or undiagnosed, things are tough for everyone. Everyone's feeling the strain financially. You have a small group who maybe don't, but by and large, most Americans feel the strain, okay? It's just exacerbated for some, okay, because they've lived in poverty. But when you look at mental health, you say, listen, guys, allow people to exist. Make sure when you speak from a position of offering constructive criticism, love, genuinely wanting to help. If we want to look at each other and see everything that we've done wrong, listen, we can have those conversations all day and all night, but where does that really get us? So I just implore people to engage in the process, okay? Engage in the process and really try to be a part of the solution. And if they can do that, listen, we have others out here who are trying to fight this good fight and make this progress. And I just challenge each of them to continue to push forward. Don't give up. Because like you say, when we see those instances of violence, specifically among the youth, it can be disheartening, okay? But the battle doesn't go to the swift. It goes to those who are consistent and persistent, those who persevere. And so that's all I will leave you with.